SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome, and it's tragic. It's when an infant, usually less than one, is just found dead. It's the crib deaths you hear about. And we've evolved and learned a lot. There was the back to sleep movement, and babies should sleep on their back because remember, they can't lift their head. You have them on a pillow and they just suffocate. So as a paramedic, you may be the one educating on this. So I'm going to give some answers on prevention because once the death's happened, it's happened. And I'll talk about that. But on the prevention aspect, back to sleep, having the baby in a separate crib so you don't roll over on the baby, and those are two things that can really make a difference. And often as a paramedic, you're the educator at the scene, and you can prevent this. And on the sad case that you arrive to the scene and the baby's not breathing, support the respirations and get them to the hospital. You learn a lot about a paramedic, about termination of resuscitation. And in an adult, for example, if it's unwitnessed, there is no shock delivered, and there's no return of spontaneous circulation, you consider calling someone on the scene. If there's lividity, they're pooling blood on their bottom, they're just in rigor mortis and rigid, you call them on the scene. If they're decapitated, you call them on the scene. But there's a practical aspect of this as well. If you arrive to a mall and someone has a cardiac arrest and everybody's staring at you, you can't just be like, peace out, I'm done. You have to kind of not create a scene there, and you may have to transport them. So SIDS is very similar, where there's parental expectations. You just don't show up and say, game over. You do everything you can for that little baby. And unfortunately, by that time, it may be too late, but support the airway the best you can, get them to the hospital, and hopefully we can prevent the baby from being a statistic. Most arrests in the pediatric age group are respiratory. So this is different than the elder adult where you may defibrillate them for VFib and give epinephrine and amiodarone. That's not going to be the case. If their heart stopped in pediatrics, it's because of primary respiratory. So bagging, 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 get them to the hospital.